This person is my girlfriend. We're dating.
Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had suspected my husband of infidelity from his behavior, but I never imagined he would bring his affair partner to our home, where our daughter lives.
There's a Kylie of mine inside her now.
The second shock left me sitting there, unable to move. The affair partner grinned down at me, reveling in my reaction. Oh, wait a minute. What is this?
I'm marrying her and starting a new family here. So you all need to leave.
That's right. Both the kid and the old lady. Get out of here quickly. The affair partner laughed while my husband slammed the divorce papers on the table. I could only sit there, my mouth opening and closing in shock.
Well, that's how it is. I'll give you 2 weeks, so pack your things by then.
With those words, my husband left, embracing the affair partner. What stopped him was our 5-year-old daughter, who possessed a mysterious power. Hey, wait, Daddy.
What is it?
You said there's a baby, right? But that person's belly is empty. Ignoring that, my husband faced the tragic consequences awaiting him. My name is Marina Mitchell. I'm 34 and raising my 5-year-old daughter, Kylie. I met my husband, Kevin, through our shared interest in outdoor activities. When I went camping alone, Kevin was the one who extended a helping hand at the same campsite. After graduating from college, I worked vigorously in the investment department of a bank, earning a substantial income. On the other hand, Kevin worked for a small company, earning only half of my salary. Still, I decided to marry him because he was always kind to me and seemed like he could be a good father. Since I was often away from home for work, I had a desire for Kevin to take care of the household chores in my absence. So, we got married and started our married life in the apartment I bought during my single days. However, I soon realized that desires were just desires. Kevin hardly did any housework. While he cooked during outdoor activities, at home, he would make excuses like,
I've never cooked before,
and wouldn't even attempt it. When he came home, his laundry would be strewn about, and he had never once used the vacuum cleaner. I never imagined that my marriage partner would lack so much domestic competence. I tried to teach him household chores several times, but Kevin resisted every time.
Since we're married, household chores are a woman's job, right?
Even though I'm working, a little help would be appreciated.
It's impossible for me. Impossible. From now on, you're the one who'll do the housework.
He didn't even show a willingness to help in this manner. I'm exhausted from overtime, yet he laughs and watches TV in a room that hasn't been cleaned properly. Watching him, I felt an overwhelming increase in fatigue. In the fall of our second year of marriage, while living such a life, I found out I was pregnant. Kevin was pleased, and I had faint hopes. Maybe he would change with the pregnancy and childbirth. But in reality, he didn't change at all, even after our daughter Kylie was born. Since I was on maternity leave, taking care of the house, he started living an even more sloppy life. Even when Kylie cried at night, while I struggled to handle her, he slept soundly. Unable to endure it any longer, I finally complained to Kevin. Hey, Kevin, childcare is something both of us should do, right? Can't you cooperate a little? Kevin responded in a tone that seemed to mock me.
Huh? Look, raising kids is the wife's job. That's how it's supposed to be.
That's not true.
My mom has been doing it that way for ages. You're crazy for trying to push such troublesome things onto your husband.
Your mom was a housewife. I can't do it alone.
Just be quiet and do what you're supposed to do. Don't rely on me.
In this way, he wouldn't even change a single diaper for Kylie. The stress built up so much that divorce crossed my mind several times. But each time, I thought of Kylie and refrained. I can't selfishly take her father away. So, I started doing all the household chores and childcare while working. On a different note, I had some strange experiences while raising Kylie. For example, when Kylie was about 1.5 years old, we received a lottery spin ticket in the city's shopping district. I had some errands, so I was about to leave without participating, but Kylie vehemently cried when passing by the lottery spin place. When I pulled back the stroller, she stopped crying. When I tried to move forward, she cried again. It was as if she wanted to do the lottery spin. Maybe she sees the spinning lottery as a toy? Well, let's give it a try. With that in mind, I took Kylie to spin the blessed wheel. To my surprise, we won the grand prize. The prize was a large state-of-the-art TV. It was lucky because I was thinking of replacing ours. But the story doesn't end there. When Kylie turned 2, something happened when we tried to ride a swan boat at a large park nearby. Until then, Kylie had been clamoring to ride the duck. But the moment she tried to board the boat, she suddenly became fussy. What's wrong, Kylie? You were so excited about riding it. I don't like it. If I ride the duck, the water will bubble up and it'll be scary. She insisted on not riding, so I decided not to ride the swan boat that day. An hour later, while eating lunch at the same park, there was some kind of commotion at the boat ramp. I hurried over and saw a swan boat half sinking offshore, and passengers hurriedly evacuating. It was exactly the boat we were about to board. If I had ridden that one with Kylie, I would have drowned by now. I felt a chill run down my spine. After that, Kylie's mysterious remarks continued. She would say things that sounded like prophecies or even discern someone's secrets. She even said something like this in front of my parents. Grandpa doesn't have money. It seems he spent it on horse racing. When I questioned my father, it turned out he had gambled the previous day and used the household money. And then my father was thoroughly scolded by my mother. This child must have some mysterious power. Over time, I became convinced of this. I tried telling Kevin about it, but he laughed it off, saying,
There's no scientific basis for such things.
Kylie is already 5 years old. Although I handle all the household chores and childcare, as long as Kylie is with me, it doesn't feel burdensome. I was thinking that we could continue living peacefully. Just when I was thinking that way, shadows began to appear little by little in our peaceful daily life. There's something strange about Kevin's behavior. Until now, when his work ended at 5 p.m., he would come home immediately, and by 6 p.m., he would be lounging around the house. But recently, there have been days when he doesn't come home until after 10 p.m. Moreover, he has started going on business trips, something he had never done before. Inside the house, he always keeps his phone close, and family conversations seem to be of no interest to him. Sensing something amiss, I decided to meet him and ask, "Hey, Kevin, your return has been late recently, hasn't it?"
Yeah. Recently, work has been busy. I got transferred to a new department."
He has a job too, so I accepted that there might be such things at that time. But after a while, even Kevin's attitude towards Kylie began to change. We were supposed to go to the summer fair in the neighborhood with the three of us that day. Kylie, all prepared in a pretty dress, clung to Kevin's arm.
"Hey, Dad, I'm ready. Let's go to the fair."
But then Kevin, looking bothered, brushed off Kylie and said,
"What's the matter? Such a hassle. I'm not going to the festival."
Kylie looked surprised, but immediately welled up with tears and started trembling. I quickly embraced Kylie and criticized Kevin. We had plans from before, didn't we? Even Kylie was looking forward to it.
"Stop whining. I have something to do now."
What on earth do you have to do on a night off?
"Just go to the festival with the two of you."
My husband spat out those words and then went off somewhere in a hurry. In the end, I went to the festival with Kylie alone. At first, Kylie was disappointed, but she seemed to have used her mysterious ability to win the toy she wanted in a drawing, and her mood improved. That toy looked just like a real mobile phone and could take photos and record audio. While I smiled, watching over Kylie deep down, I held a grudge against Kevin. And then, just 3 days later, in the evening as Kylie and I spent time together, Kylie, playing with the toy she won at the festival, suddenly looked up.
"Mom, a visitor is coming."
Huh? And just 1 minute later, Kevin returned home. Behind him was a flashy-looking woman I didn't recognize. Kevin? Who is this person?
"Wow, so this is your house, Kevin. It's a pretty nice apartment."
Ignoring what I said, the woman boldly entered the house. Meanwhile, my husband hugged the woman's shoulders and said something.
"This is Olivia Adams. We're dating."
Those words hit me like a bolt of lightning. I had suspected infidelity from my husband's behavior, but I never expected him to bring his affair partner, the person herself, into our home with our daughter. Hey, what are you saying in front of Kylie?
"Kylie, listen carefully. Right now, Olivia is carrying my child."
Faced with the second shock, I involuntarily sat down, overwhelmed. The woman, Kevin's affair partner, looked down with a smirk at my state. Wait a minute. What is happening?
"I'm getting married to her, and we'll live here as a new family. So you guys, get out."
"That's right. Both the kid and the old lady get out of here, quickly."
His affair partner smirks and laughs as he slams the divorce papers on the table. I could only sit there with my mouth agape.
"Well, that's how it is. I'll give you 2 weeks. Pack your things by then."
He said that and tried to leave, hugging Olivia. What stopped him was Kylie. who possessed a mysterious power.
Hey, wait, Dad.
What is it?
You said there's a baby, right? But that person's belly is empty.
Huh?
Kevin and Olivia exchanged glances, looking uncomfortable, and then looked at Kylie.
What is this child saying?
Having a daughter like this is disgusting. I'll discard her and make a new one.
Stop saying such things to Kylie, I shouted while holding Kylie, but the two left the house together. In the quiet room, Kylie looked at me and said softly,
Mom, we don't need a dad like that anymore, right? It's okay, so let's live together, just you and me.
Kylie. Holding my daughter again, flames were burning fiercely in my heart. You betrayed the family and impregnated that woman, so get out. I won't forgive this. I will definitely show them a thing or two. I started taking action from the next day. And then, 2 weeks later, after Kylie went to sleep, our house door was being knocked on loudly. Standing outside was Kevin, his face flushed. Yes, what's the matter?
Just open the door. We need to talk.
In the living room, Kevin was suddenly yelling at me.
What the hell do you think you're doing? Sending a certified letter to my workplace?
Well, I didn't know where you were. It seemed like the only option.
And how did you even find Olivia's address?
I had immediately hired a private investigator to uncover the identity of Olivia, the bar girl Kevin was involved with. Determining her address was also an easy task. To claim alimony from them, I promptly sent a certified letter. It's easy to find out such things. As stated in the notice, you will soon make alimony payments.
What do you mean?
If you don't like that, I'll take you to court. So be prepared for that. Kevin, turning red and trembling, suddenly spoke as if mocking.
Court? You didn't even know I was cheating on you. Where's the proof?
I silently confronted Kevin with something.
What? Kylie's toy? What about it?
I pressed the button on the toy, and the audio started playing. That day, Kevin told me the truth.
What is this?
Kylie was recording. The audio confession data is solid evidence of the affair. Yes, Kylie was recording what happened that day using the toy's recording function. When it was presented to me, even I was genuinely surprised.
Ugh.
Moreover, you two have been meeting for the past 2 weeks, right? I've hired a private investigator to capture images of you entering her house. It's too late for excuses now. When I stated this clearly, Kevin began saying outrageous things.
Fine. I'll give you this house then. So spare me from alimony.
Huh? What are you talking about? This house was originally mine, wasn't it?
Huh? Isn't the house shared property once you're married? So through property division...
Seeing Kevin's bewildered expression, I couldn't help but be utterly amazed. You know, only assets acquired after marriage are subject to property division. I bought this apartment when I was single, and the title is in my name. You have no right to claim it.
What? No way.
Kevin is quite shocked. It seems he was under the impression that the apartment truly belonged to him. After contemplating for a while, he knelt down at my feet.
Marina, please, forgive me. I've been told to pay alimony for Olivia, and if I pay for both, I'll go bankrupt. I have to raise our child from now on, I beg you.
Huh? My anger reached its peak at his selfish remarks. What are you saying, you scumbag? You abandoned me and Kylie, yet you dare say such things? I'll be the one to cast away someone like you. Be prepared. I will definitely collect alimony and child support from you. Seeing my reaction, Kevin let out a short scream and fled to the entrance. I chased after him and called out to Kevin, who was about to leave through the entrance. You know, shall I tell you something?
What is it?
It seems that your affair partner, whom the private investigator had been watching for the past 2 weeks, was casually enjoying alcohol and cigarettes. Is she really pregnant?
Huh?
Also, when you're not with her, it seems she's with another man. Did you know that? Then, Kevin turned pale and hurriedly went somewhere. As he walked away, I shouted this. Don't ever show your face again, you despicable man. Later, it turned out that Olivia's pregnancy was indeed a lie. She saw Kevin's belongings, mistook him for rich, and in order to have an easy life, she tried to marry him by faking her pregnancy. However, our household's high standard of living was due to my earnings, and Kevin's income was below average. Olivia quickly abandoned Kevin, who was left with nothing after paying alimony. I am also claiming alimony from Olivia. Currently, she is paying the alimony in installments while increasing her nighttime job. After being abandoned by Olivia, Kevin followed us for a while, attempting to reconcile. Of course, I had no intention of forgiving him, and only after issuing a restraining order through a lawyer did he finally stop appearing in front of us. Although his savings are depleted due to alimony, Kevin must pay child support. He now works during the day and takes on part-time jobs at construction sites at night, living alone in a run-down apartment. I hope he earns for Kylie's sake and remains lonely. On the other hand, I am leading a peaceful life with Kylie. Kylie's mysterious remarks continue even now. Listening to them is both enjoyable and a bit frightening. Nevertheless, she remains a daughter so cute that it doesn't hurt even if you look her in the eye. I plan to continue living positively, prioritizing Kylie's happiness from now on.
Hey, wait a minute. What on earth are you doing?
My husband, with a smirk on his face, carried the wheelchair and kicked it forcefully towards the sea with a loud clatter. Overwhelmed by shock, I raised my voice.
What are you doing?
Oh, with this, your wheelchair is gone, right?
But that's because you...
Listen, even if you have to crawl back, come home. You got household chores waiting for you, you know.
No way! With both legs broken, my wheelchair is my lifeline. Now that this last resort is gone, I can't even move. What am I supposed to do in this situation? I can't even go on the road like this. There are no buses running around here. At this rate, the sun will set. However, no matter how much I try, the distance I can cover is minimal. What should I do? It seems impossible to think about this. At that moment, when my spirit was about to break, an unexpected event brought a ray of light to me. My name is Samantha Miller, and I'm 29 years old. After graduating from university, I once worked for a major company, but resigned when I got married. Since then, I've been living an ordinary life as a housewife. It's been 2 years since I married Maxwell, my husband. The reason I quit my job was because of his words.
When we get married, I want you to quit your job and take care of that house.
Huh? Does that mean becoming a full-time housewife?
Yeah. I can handle the income somehow. More than that, I want to build a home where meals are ready when I come back.
But if that's the case, I could still continue working.
No. Wouldn't you feel uneasy with various things if you had a job? I think it would be emotionally easier to just do the housework.
Well, that's true, but my husband works for the company run by his father. He's in a position to become the president soon, having received a high position at a young age. In my case, there is income, and it will likely continue to increase in the future. Even if we have children, we can live comfortably with his income. Perhaps I don't need to force myself to continue working at this point. I didn't dislike my job, but it wasn't a profession I was particularly passionate about. In that case, I aimed to shape the process as closely as possible to his ideal. With that in mind, I agreed to his request for me to quit my job. I decided to quit my job and become a full-time housewife to support our household. Marriage with a person I love. Newlywed life spent leisurely doing household chores. Is it really okay to be so blessed? With such thoughts in mind, we became a married couple. However, at some point, this newlywed life started to feel like a burden. The trigger was a trivial thing. One day, about 3 months after getting married, on that day, coincidentally when I wasn't feeling well, I arranged frozen side dishes I had purchased in advance for dinner. Upon seeing that, my husband immediately raised his voice in anger.
Hey, what's this?
Huh? What do you mean?
This is dinner. You didn't make this, did you?
Yeah. I wasn't feeling well today, so I used frozen side dishes. Right after explaining that, my husband threw the side dishes, along with the plate, into the trash. Caught off guard by this sudden action, I was speechless. Huh? What just happened? He threw away the dinner side dishes? And the whole plate? Is this a joke? Maxwell's breathing was heavy, giving off a different vibe than usual. Without understanding the situation, I somehow managed to squeeze out some words. Maxwell? Why would you do something like this?
Huh? You're supposed to be a housewife, and you use ready-made frozen food, right? Are you making fun of me?
No, that's not... I'm sorry, it turned out to be pre-made. But I wasn't feeling well, and I couldn't make something elaborate.
Shut up. Is this what you call preparing dinner? All you did was arrange ready-made side dishes, right? You're not even trying to give off the feeling like you did something proper.
I'm sorry. An intense fear shook my entire body. Did he get so furious over this? I had never seen him like this before. Sure, I did something wrong. Admittedly, the side dishes were already made. But I also cooked rice, made soup, and prepared some side dishes in advance. Why is he so angry just because one side dish was frozen? I had questions for my husband, but it wasn't a situation where I could confront him. In the end, he went out to eat alone. From that day on, my husband's domineering attitude worsened day by day. I was no longer addressed by my name, but rather with
Hey,
or you, treated like a housekeeper. Even after 2 years of marriage, nothing changed. If anything, it became worse than it was back then. One day, as I was preparing breakfast, my husband, who had just woken up, suddenly said something like this.
Hey, hurry up and get ready.
Huh? Get ready for what?
Obviously, get ready to go out. I told you to prepare because we're going to my parents' house.
To your parents' house? Wait, I didn't hear anything about that.
Shut up. Just move as I instruct you to. Instead of making a bad meal, hurry up and get ready.
Yes. Once it gets to this point, arguing back will only antagonize him. I quickly took off my apron and began preparing to go out. I finished getting ready in about 20 minutes, but my husband's mood was worse than before. He had been complaining the whole way to his parents' house. A few hours later, when we arrived at his parents' house, they warmly welcomed us. At his parents' house, Maxwell played the role of a good son and husband, so I felt relieved. As we chatted over tea that his mother made, his father brought up a conversation with me.
Samantha, are you having a hard time with our son?
Huh?
Well, I was wondering if he takes you on trips or anything. We love the sea and mountains, so we go on a drive every few months.
Is that so? I'm sure your wife must be delighted.
It would be nice if that were true. Lately, she just sleeps in the passenger seat, so it's a bit lonely.
Your wife is busy every day, too. As we were having this conversation, I noticed that my husband was glaring at us with a sharp look. It was as if he was saying,
"Don't say unnecessary things."
I don't intend to expose my husband's true nature to my in-laws. I am the one who receives his abusive remarks and unkind actions, and only I know about them. Without solid evidence, there's no way I could talk to my in-laws. Even if they believed me, my husband would likely deny it. If my in-laws were to give him a warning, I would undoubtedly face severe consequences later. The best strategy is to maintain the current situation. To do that, I must avoid saying unnecessary things in front of my in-laws. I just have to play the role of a good wife, keeping silent as instructed. I repeated this to myself many times and barely managed to get through each day. Then, a week later, the incident occurred. On the way back from the supermarket, where I went to buy dinner ingredients, a car ignored a traffic signal and collided with me, causing a serious injury with both legs broken. I was taken to the hospital, and my husband should have been informed, but he never came to visit. In the end, he didn't show up even once until I was discharged, so I had to buy everything I needed from the hospital store. Since both of my legs were broken, I had to use a wheelchair for mobility. Moving it on my own consumed more energy than it seemed. The hospital was spacious, and reaching the store was quite a challenge. On the day of my discharge, I received no contact from my husband, and I returned home alone. When I got home, my husband, despite it still being daytime, was drinking beer and snacks in hand.
Finally, you're back.
In his tipsy state, unable to endure his mocking, I involuntarily raised my voice. Hey, isn't this going too far? I had an accident, you know.
Huh? So what? There were no life-threatening injuries, right? That's what I heard, so I didn't bother visiting the hospital.
Normally, when a family member has an accident, you rush to be with them, right? Do you have any idea how I spent these 3 weeks?
And what's wrong with that? Just so you know, I had to do all the housework by myself for 3 weeks, because there was no maid.
Maid? My husband clearly said that to me. Not wife, but maid. Tears welled up with anger and sadness, blurring my vision. I headed straight to the bedroom and cried myself to sleep that day. Having cried myself to sleep last night, my head was pounding in the morning. With no motivation to do anything, I lay in bed, and my husband called out from the bedroom door.
How about going for a drive to clear your mind?
Huh? A drive?
Didn't I talk to my parents about it before? Going for drives regularly or something.
Oh, yeah. But why all of a sudden?
Well, I figured you must be tired after being in the hospital. Well, it's just a change of pace.
I couldn't believe my husband was making such a suggestion. I was too surprised to find the right words. I was genuinely happy that he understood my feelings. Yeah, let's go.
All right then, get ready. I'll be waiting.
Got it. I was accustomed to operating the wheelchair, but with both legs immobile, even dressing was a struggle. Since it was cumbersome with separates, I chose a one-piece dress that I could put on easily. From the house to the car, my husband pushed the wheelchair for me. Did he reconsider because of what happened yesterday? His casual kindness warmed my heart. Perhaps Maxwell had also reconsidered. Could our relationship as a couple move in a positive direction? Although the accident was tough, if I can live happily with Maxwell from now on, there's no point in always thinking negatively. I've decided to enjoy the drive with my husband to the fullest. A few hours later,
We've arrived.
my husband parked the car and took the wheelchair out of the trunk. We had arrived at a high point along the coast. Before us, the vast sea stretched out. Wow, it's so beautiful.
Right? My dad showed me this place.
Amazing. Thank you, Maxwell. As I expressed my gratitude again, my husband smiled slightly. But in the next moment, he roughly grabbed the wheelchair and moved it towards the cliff. Unable to move, I remained in the passenger seat of the car and shouted, "Wait a minute, what are you doing?" While grinning, he moved the wheelchair towards the cliff and kicked it forcefully towards the sea. In shock, I raised my voice. "What are you doing?"
Well, now your wheelchair is gone.
"But you're the one who..."
Too bad. Your legs are already gone, right?
"This is terrible. Why would you do such a thing?" My tearful cries seemed to annoy my husband, who responded with an indifferent expression.
Did you seriously think I brought you here because of my parents?
"What do you mean?"
You carelessly had an accident on your own, avoided housework for 3 weeks. It's only natural to face the consequences, right?
Careless? Someone disregarded the signal. And I didn't neglect housework at all.
Shut up. Keep your mouth shut, okay? Crawl back home if you have to. You've got some value left in you.
How could you? My husband dragged me out of the car and left me there. Then he got into the driver's seat, started the engine, and drove back along the same road. "Please, Maxwell, wait!" No matter how many times I shouted, my husband just grinned and looked at me. My pleas were in vain as he continued back along the same road. For me, with both legs fractured, the wheelchair was a lifeline. Now that this lifeline was gone, I couldn't even move. What am I supposed to do in this situation? I can't even reach the road. This area doesn't even have buses running. At this rate, it will be dark soon. However, no matter how hard I tried, the distance I covered was minuscule. What should I do? It's impossible to figure this out. Tears fell uncontrollably, and I bit my lip hard. A faint taste of blood lingered. The anger against my pitiful state and my husband's heartless actions wouldn't subside. This is not a joke. How much more does he want to belittle me? If this continues, Just when I felt like my spirit was about to break, a car stopped in front of me.
Samantha? Is that you, Samantha?
A man approached with a surprised expression. It was none other than my father-in-law. Dad, why are you here?
That's my line. Samantha, why are you here? And what happened to your leg?
Oh, I had an accident and ended up with fractures. Just a while ago, Maxwell was with me.
Oh, I can't believe it. Did he leave you here?
I shouldn't have revealed the truth. Although I knew I shouldn't, I unconsciously nodded, feeling desperate. Following my father-in-law, my mother-in-law came with a blanket and draped it over my shoulders. She placed the blanket over my shoulders and with a tense expression asked me,
Samantha, are you okay?
Mom, we happen to be at a relative's house nearby. This is our favorite beach. We usually stop by on our way home, and then we happened to see you.
I see. Turns out my husband found out about this place from his parents. I never expected them to find me here by chance.
What happened? Tell me everything.
My father-in-law looked straight at me, tears streaming down his face. Summoning the courage, I opened up about the past 2 years. Actually, until I finished speaking, my in-laws listened in silence. At one point, my mother-in-law shed tears and embraced me tightly.
I'm sorry. Our son put you through such a thing.
Please, don't apologize, Mom. I also have my faults.
There's no way you could have predicted this. You're our precious daughter. We can't let things stay like this.
Thank you, Mom. Afterward, my in-laws took me in their car to a nearby spaghetti restaurant. We had a meal there, and then the 3 of us returned home. My father-in-law took the lead, ringing the doorbell. My husband, without any suspicion, opened the door, surprised to see us. When he saw us, his eyes widened.
Why?
He muttered softly, and my father-in-law raised his voice angrily.
What have you done to our precious daughter? Precious daughter? I'm your precious son too, aren't I? What are you talking about? Don't spout nonsense. You're no longer my son. I won't let someone with no common sense exceed me. What? That's a joke, right? You're fired. Get out. Never show your face in front of us again. This can't be.
My father-in-law kindly told me to pack my things. With the help of my mother-in-law, I packed my belongings into a suitcase as instructed, and we left the house. When I got into the car, my husband rushed toward me with a tear-stained face. He was a mess of tears, and pleaded with me to forgive him. But there was no way I could forgive him now. Perhaps there was never any love between us from the beginning. I could finally see that. Staring coldly at my husband, I uttered these harsh words. Enough! I can't easily forgive something like this, can I? I can no longer believe in you or continue to love you. Never interfere with my life again. With those words, my husband slumped weakly to the ground. Ignoring him, we headed towards my in-laws' home in my father-in-law's car. Afterward, I decided to stay with my in-laws until I could feel my legs again. 3 months later, I regained mobility and was hired by my father-in-law's company. Naturally, I divorced my husband. After being hired from his job, he is now looking for a new job and is making do with a day job. On the recommendation of my father-in-law, I am now in the process of filing a claim for alimony to Maxwell via a lawyer. Regarding being abandoned, my in-laws will act as witnesses, so it's only a matter of time before he is held accountable for his actions. I may have made a mistake in choosing a life partner, but thanks to that, I've met wonderful in-laws. I hope to continue to cherish this relationship and repay it while working for my father-in-law's company. When I woke up, I was in an all-white room. I had several tubes coming out of my body, connected to machines. My mom was crying, looking worried as she peered over my hospital bed. According to her, I had been in a car accident while driving and was rushed to the hospital. That's when I remembered. I was delivering something my husband forgot, and suddenly the brakes stopped working. I woke up confused and didn't have any idea why my car malfunctioned. Just then, I got a message from my husband, Leroy, on my phone. I was shocked by the message's content. I'm Molly, a 32-year-old woman. Leroy and I have been married for 3 years. We live in a condo together, but we don't have any kids yet. Together, we started a corporation, with him handling the CEO duties. The company's been doing great, with rising profits. Our employees work hard and our business relationships are strong. Considering all the struggles we faced initially, we're in a pretty fortunate position now. However, our marriage hasn't been going well, contrary to the company's success. Lately, Leroy and I have hardly been talking. It's been awkward. The trouble started a few months ago when I found an unfamiliar earring in the car. I don't usually wear flashy accessories, and my earrings are either simple or small. But the earring I found had a large, bright red rose decoration. Plus, there was a faint scent of women's perfume in the car, different from any I own. Naturally, I confronted him about it, holding up the earring. Hey, I found this earring in the car. Whose is it? Plus, there was this perfume smell I don't recognize. He seemed caught off guard for a moment, then started making excuses.
Earring? Oh, I don't remember. Oh, maybe it's from a coworker I drove recently. My bad. I'll make sure to return it. The perfume must be hers too. Don't get the wrong idea, okay?
He quickly took the earring from me, and saying he had work left, retreated to his room. His evasive eyes made it clear he was lying. I was sure he was cheating. Since then, our relationship has deteriorated. I just couldn't trust him anymore. He tried to win me over with gifts and flowers, but his insincerity only made me trust him less. I thought if he has someone else, we could just separate. It's okay if his heart lies elsewhere. Living in a tense marriage isn't good for either of us. But whenever I tried discussing divorce, he would find excuses to avoid it.
I have work.
Or,
I'm too tired now. Let's talk later.
He'd say, then lock himself in his room. His reluctance wasn't due to lingering affection for me. He feared losing control of the company. We cooperated in work, but at home we barely spoke or saw each other. His refusal to face our issues only cooled my feelings further. To be honest, I was tired of our life together. I considered discussing it with our parents, but I didn't want to make a big deal out of it. Instead, I decided to call my friend Nicole for advice. Nicole, are you free this weekend? Wanna grab some coffee? I have something I need to talk about. That's rare for you to ask for advice. Sure, I'm free. Nicole, my glamorous and outgoing college friend, was the opposite of me in many ways. She had a wide social circle, including various romantic interests. She knew Leroy since she attended our wedding. I hoped she might have some good advice for me, or at least let me vent. We met at a stylish cafe. I told her everything. My suspicions of Leroy's infidelity, his attempt to placate me, and his avoidance of divorce talks. She listened quietly, but then she said something unbelievable. Leroy's kind and handsome. There might be women who don't mind that he's married. But even if he's cheating, maybe it's unavoidable? You haven't been valuing him enough, Molly. I couldn't understand why she'd say that. I was the victim, so why was I being blamed? Stunned, I asked her, "Are you saying it's my fault?" "Not exactly, but you're strong-willed and quick to blame. You always insisted on splitting household chores, right? Maybe he got tired of that strictness." "I don't always talk about gender equality. I just reminded him that household chores aren't only a woman's job. It's an outdated mindset to think only women should do housework." "I don't see it that way. If the husband works hard, supporting him is the wife's role. Constant nagging would wear any man down." No matter what I said, she seemed to side with Leroy. After some discussion, she casually suggested, "Why not just give him the company? Leroy's the CEO, so the company is basically his. Get a good sum of money and then leave after the divorce. You can find someone else then. You're beautiful. You can do it." "I can't do that. I can't settle for less than alimony and half of our shared assets. Plus, there's the future of the company." Talking to her only increased my frustration. I felt betrayed by my best friend. Was she always this off base? Suggesting I just hand the company over to Leroy? I went home without any resolution. And a few days later, the accident happened. Leroy didn't come home until late that night. Around 10 p.m., he called.
I'm really sorry, but I forgot something at the office. Can you bring it to me? I was supposed to send some documents to a new client, but I brought the wrong ones.
I rushed out with my car keys. Despite our strained relationship, this was urgent for the company. Like I said before, I don't mix personal feelings with work. The quickest way to the office was over the mountains, so I sped up. Then I realized something was wrong. The brakes weren't working. Panicking, I kept pressing the brakes, but it was useless. The car sped up uncontrollably. I missed a turn and crashed through the guardrail, plummeting off the cliff. That's when I lost consciousness. When I woke up, I was in an all-white room connected to machines with several tubes. Is this a hospital? I turned at a movement and saw my mom looking at me worriedly. When our eyes met, she burst into tears.
"You're awake, thank goodness. A passing car called an ambulance. They contacted me using the phone number on your note."
She told me I was unconscious and limp when brought to the hospital, and she was devastated.
"When Leroy called, I was so shocked I blurted out that you weren't breathing."
That triggered my memory of rushing to Leroy and crashing. I had a mild concussion from the accident, but fortunately no injuries. The cliff wasn't high. The doctor said no major issues were found in the MRI, and I could go home in the morning if nothing else happened. It was already late at night. It was too late to deliver Leroy's forgotten items. Despite the accident, I thought I should apologize to the client. Checking my phone, I saw a message from Leroy and opened it, freezing in shock.
I've tampered with the car. That'll be the end of Molly. Now that she's out of the way, let's get married.
His malicious message left me speechless. I had the accident because he sabotaged the car. His claim of forgetting something at the office was probably a lie. He wanted to be with his mistress without giving me alimony or our shared company profits. He tried to kill me to keep everything for himself. He must have sent this message to his mistress, but it was actually sent to me by mistake. I see. I was shaking with anger. I would have agreed to a divorce if he wanted, even considered reducing the alimony. But he chose the worst way to betray me. I couldn't forgive him. I was determined to bring him down. I discussed the plan with my mom. The next day, I waited at home, fully prepared to confront Leroy. He returned around noon, not alone, but with a woman's voice accompanying him. Hearing the woman's voice, I was stunned. It sounded familiar.
I never thought it would work out so well. With Molly gone, all the assets are mine. I'll spoil you with luxuries, Nicole.
I'm so happy. I never imagined I could be with you. Sorry, Molly, but I'm a better match for you. She'll forgive us in heaven. To my shock, his mistress was Nicole, my best friend. They had betrayed me together. I understood her behavior during our coffee talk. She was covering up her affair with him. Their conversation continued.
Tonight's the wake, and tomorrow's the funeral. We have to pretend to cry. If our relationship gets out, everything's ruined.
I know, and we can't remarry immediately. It would look suspicious. We'll play the grieving husband and friend, gradually drawn to each other. It's like a drama. So exciting. They chatted cheerfully, unaware I was listening. When they entered the living room, I greeted them with a smile. Welcome home. You two seem happy. When they saw me, they screamed in horror, as if they had seen a ghost. Leroy stumbled backwards and fell, and Nicole collapsed, her legs giving way. In disbelief, my husband stammered.
How are you still alive?
Actually, I had asked my mother to tell him that I had died. That's why he felt safe bringing his mistress Nicole back home. I looked at them with a cold gaze. I never would have guessed Nicole was the other woman. To think I was betrayed by both my husband and my best friend. That was totally unexpected. How long has this been going on? They seemed to come back to their senses at my question. Despite everything, he denied the affair.
No, it's a misunderstanding. I heard you died and I just invited Nicole over to console her. There's nothing guilty about it.
She quickly joined in his defense. That's right. I was so sad when I heard you had passed away. He was just comforting me while I cried. The idea of me going after my best friend's husband is ridiculous. Both of them had quite the nerve. They probably never imagined I had heard their conversation before entering the living room. Or maybe they thought they could bluff their way through, assuming there was no evidence. I confronted them with the incriminating phone message he had sent. He muttered,
Oh man, I sent it to the wrong person.
She glared at him in disbelief. Upon forcing them to talk, it turned out their relationship started right after I introduced him to Nicole. I told them firmly, I'll ask the police to investigate the car. You should be prepared because what you two did is a serious crime. He then begged for mercy.
Please, anything but that. Please, don't call the police. If you report this, I won't be able to live a normal life anymore. I'll break up with her, and I swear I'll never do anything to harm you again.
Do you hear yourself? How can I forgive you? I can't trust you anymore. We're getting a divorce, and I will demand alimony from both of you. She then lunged at me in a fit of rage. Then I'll just have to finish you off right here. If you're gone, I can be the president's wife. At that moment, a loud voice shouted,
Stop! That's enough!
My parents and relatives emerged from the back room and restrained Nicole. Leroy's in-laws surrounded him, showering him with insults. I had anticipated they might try to harm me, so I had called our families to the house. One of my relatives had recorded the entire conversation and had already called the police. Hearing that the police had been called, Nicole's face grew even paler. She began crying and begging me for help.
I can't be arrested. Please, Molly, forgive me. I only had an affair with Leroy for a bit of excitement. It wasn't serious. Please, let's forget the police. We're best friends, aren't we?
I reached my limit with her selfish remarks. F you. Who do you think wrecked your best friend's home? To say something like that now? Have you no shame?
But, I mean...
Enough. I don't want to hear any more from a criminal. I'm cutting ties with you, and I will never forgive either of you. Stay away from me. Forever. Leroy and Nicole were then taken away by the police, crying. Later, they were found guilty of attempting to take my life. Their motive was to avoid property division and to monopolize the company's profits. They had become criminals out of greed, and I had no sympathy for them. Afterward, I hired a lawyer and finalized my divorce from Leroy. The alimony for the affair was paid by both Nicole and Leroy's families. They were to repay it after they were released from prison, even if it meant working to do so. Eventually, I took over as the president of the company. The employees did not pry into my personal life and simply offered their sympathy. Later, I returned to a carefree single life. From now on, I plan to focus on my work as president and live my life positively.
I appreciate everyone gathering today for my wife.
At the funeral of a close friend, my husband referred to a woman I didn't know as his acquaintance. As my husband finished speaking and bowed, I stood up and shouted, "What on earth is this about? I am your wife, right?" The attention of the venue suddenly focused on me. There was a buzz around the room. My husband, perhaps noticing me for the first time, grew increasingly pale.
Huh? Why are you here?
That's my line. Explain yourself properly. As I glared at him, my husband, in a panicked expression, shouted at me.
Just go home. You have nothing to do with this.
Huh? Nothing to do with this? You. Before I could say anything, I was escorted out by the staff. At that moment, my anger reached its peak. Fine. If you're going to do that, I have an idea. After that, the husband, who had continued to betray his family, would face hell. My name is Susan Underwood. I am a 45-year-old working housewife. My family is from a land-owning family and runs a local real estate business. The land and real estate managed by our family make us, in a way, a wealthy family. My father, who is 70 years old, is the eldest son of the head family. He was the patriarch of the family and considered the boss among his relatives. He is a dignified but kind and gentle father to his children. And my mother is a gentle, laid-back housewife. I was born as their only daughter. After graduating from a women's university, I pursued my childhood dream of becoming an elementary school teacher. While my father seemed a bit disappointed that I didn't take over the family real estate business, he eventually blessed the path I chose. I remained single, dedicated to my teaching career into my late 20s. Although my concerned parents tried to set up arranged marriages several times, I continued to decline. It was during this time that I met Kieran, who would later become my husband. After work, it was my daily routine to have coffee at a nearby cafe before heading home. One day, as usual, I went to the cafe, and due to a sudden rain shower, all the seats were taken. As I was acquainted with the owner, he asked me to sit with him, and I agreed. Karen was sitting in front of me at the time. At first, there was an awkward silence, but Karen broke it by commenting on the heavy rain. From there, casual conversation started. He worked as an employee for a nationwide rental agency and was the same age as me. Moreover, he lived nearby. When I mentioned my family's involvement in real estate, we found common ground. We exchanged contact information and went on several dates at that cafe, eventually leading to a relationship. After a year of dating, Karen proposed, and we became engaged. Bringing him to meet my parents, they were quite pleased, and my father said with a smile,
I never expected Susan to have such a partner. I support the marriage. I'm really happy.
Karen responded nervously.
Thank you, sir. I will make Susan happy.
My dad, satisfied with Karen's respectful response, then becomes serious.
Regarding our wishes for the marriage, if it's okay with you, Kieran, we would like you to become our son-in-law. Son-in-law?
Karen seems surprised. My father continues to explain to him.
Susan has no intention of quitting her job as a teacher, and ideally, we would like you to become the successor to our family company. You have qualifications in real estate, and I think it's not a bad proposition.
After thinking for a while, Karen tells my dad this.
I'll have to ask my dad for his opinion. I cannot reply to you right now, but I will think about it positively.
The following week, we went to Karen's father to seek permission for the marriage. Karen's mother had passed away early, leaving only his father at home. Upon hearing the discussion, Karen's father immediately gave his approval.
I respect your feelings. Karen, you take good care of Susan.
And so our marriage and Karen's acceptance into the family were decided. Karen left his job and started working at my family's real estate company. Meanwhile, I continued my job as a teacher. Within the first year of our marriage, I became pregnant. We welcomed a baby boy named Skylar. Despite the challenges of parenting, we overcame them successfully. Even now, 18 years into our marriage, we lead a simple and happy life. The only source of dissatisfaction is Karen's increasingly busy work schedule for the past 5 years. He works late on weekdays, and weekends are consistently occupied with meetings or seminars, keeping him away from home. When Skylar was younger, we spent every day together, and on Karen's days off, we used to go out somewhere. However, this abruptly changed 5 years ago. Skylar was in the upper grades of elementary school by then, and at an age when he wanted to be with his friends rather than his parents. So it wasn't a significant issue. When Skylar took the middle school entrance exam, my husband offered a little support and seemed uninterested. Naturally, the conversations between us, as a couple, drastically decreased. During the high school entrance exams, Karen mostly offered words like, well, do your best, and provided minimal support, leaving me to handle almost all aspects of sending Skylar to tutoring, as well as supporting him through the exams. Frustrated, I spoke to Karen once. Hey, Karen, lately it feels like you've been so immersed in work that you're neglecting the family. I want you to talk more with Skylar. At this, Karen responded with a somewhat irritated expression.
He's not at an age where his parents need to constantly fuss over him, is he?
But you don't even take time for us as a couple.
I've said it many times. I'm busy with work right now. This is the period of training until your father officially hands over the company to me. If I don't dedicate myself to the business, and it doesn't run smoothly, it will be a problem for you and the relatives, right?
Well, yes, but With dissatisfaction still evident in me, Karen let out a deep sigh.
I've been working hard since marrying into this family. Isn't it natural for you, as my wife, to understand that and support me?
I understand. My father still operates the real estate company as the president. Karen has become an executive, supporting my father and learning the business in the process. With the sense of indebtedness from requesting him to marry into the family, I couldn't press Karen further. One day, amid such a life, I received a message on my phone, and the sender was Kayla, my friend from college. We were close friends since our university days, both aspiring to become teachers. Even after becoming teachers, we often dined together, and she attended my wedding, showing affection for Skylar. However, due to our busy schedules and my focus on Skylar's exams, we hadn't met for a while. I wonder what happened to Kayla. Since we haven't seen each other for a while, maybe she's inviting me for tea? While thinking about such things, I opened my phone and was so surprised that my eyes widened. It turned out to be a notice of Kayla's passing sent by her mother. My daughter Kayla peacefully passed away after a year-long battle with illness. Despite feeling dizzy from that message, I called Kayla's number. Kayla's mother answered the phone immediately. According to her mother, Kayla had been battling cancer for a year. However, it was in vain, and she passed away yesterday. That girl, Kayla, hadn't talked to you, Susan, about her illness. Perhaps she didn't want to burden you. She wasn't married, and if possible, I'd like to invite her friends to the funeral. Kayla's mother told me in tears, to which I replied in a tearful voice, Of course. As it was mentioned that it was already too late for the wake, I decided to attend the farewell ceremony the next day. I reached out to friends from our school days and, feeling somewhat dazed, took out mourning clothes. Kayla, why didn't you tell me? I can't believe I won't see Kayla again. Tears overflowed one after another. Even so, I had to properly say goodbye to Kayla. On the other hand, Kieran said he wouldn't be back until the 23rd due to a business trip and left the house in a hurry yesterday. Although I tried contacting my husband, he didn't answer the phone. I left a message saying I'm going to a friend's funeral, but he still hasn't read it. However, it's not the right time for that now. I went to sleep, quietly shedding tears for Kayla. The next day, I headed to Kayla's funeral venue. The funeral hall was spacious, and it seemed there was another funeral taking place in a different section. I approached the reception with Kayla's name, expressed my condolences, and entered the venue. When I saw the figure of my best friend inside, tears couldn't be stopped. The ceremony concluded smoothly, and I bid farewell to Kayla for the last time. As Kayla, placed in the hearse, was taken away, I clasped my hands again, shedding tears once again. Before leaving, I decided to go to the restroom and headed to the toilet at the far end. On the day, I caught a glimpse of the adjacent funeral hall. Huh? I inadvertently let out a gasp. Standing in front of the altar, bowing to the attendees, was none other than my husband, Kieran. Is this someone else's funeral? I didn't hear about this. I looked at the name in front of the venue. There it was, Samantha Kane. A name I didn't know. The young woman smiling in the portrait was unfamiliar to me, but my husband unmistakably stood there, offering greetings as if he were a family member. Unable to comprehend the situation, I stood frozen.
Please take a seat as the ceremony is about to begin.
The staff motioned to me to take a seat at the back of the hall, and I sat down. My husband continued to occupy the family seat as usual. Next to him, a man and a woman who seemed to be the parents of the woman were sitting crying. In the quiet venue, a voice echoed through the microphone.
Today, we have gathered to express our gratitude for my wife, Samantha.
The one who uttered those words was my husband, Kieran. I was left speechless and could only listen in silence.
Samantha passed away from a sudden heart attack 2 days ago. Even though it was unexpected, I am overwhelmed with grief.
The man tearfully sharing his words unmistakably appeared to be my husband. At that moment, I realized everything. This must be the funeral of Kieran's affair partner. And what is this about a wife? As Kieran finished speaking and lowered his head, I stood up and shouted, "Kieran, what on earth is going on here? Am I not your wife?" The attention of everyone in the venue shifted towards me. There was a buzz around the room. My husband, perhaps noticing me for the first time, grew increasingly pale.
Huh? Why are you here?
That's my line. Explain yourself properly. As I glared at him, my husband angrily yelled at me with a troubled expression.
Just go home. You have nothing to do with this.
Huh? Nothing to do with this? You... At that moment, Karen spoke through the microphone.
I apologize for the disturbance. She is my ex-girlfriend from the past who has been stalking me. She has some mental instability and tends to have extreme misunderstandings.
What?
I never thought she would appear at my wife's funeral. We will have her removed immediately, so please, rest assured. Staff, please.
Before I could say anything, I was grabbed by the staff on both sides and dragged outside. The door closed in front of me, and a sense of despair overwhelmed me. At that moment, my anger reached its peak. Betraying the family without a proper explanation, treating me like a stalker, and kicking me out. What on earth was he thinking? Fine, if that's the way it is, I have my own plans. 1 hour later, I stood with my arms crossed at the top back entrance, waiting for the right moment. The door opened, and the coffin was placed in the hearse. Kieran, crying, tried to get into the passenger seat of the hearse. I immediately rushed out and grabbed his arm.
Huh? Are you still here?
Kieran wore a look of shock, and the surrounding mourners also looked at me with confusion. Enough already. Explain properly in front of these people.
Huh? I told you, you're my stalker ex-girlfriend. Staff, get this woman out of here quickly.
At that moment, a low voice echoed.
Who's the ex-girlfriend stalker here? Huh? Dad?
Kieran turned pale rapidly. Behind me were my parents, father-in-law, and many relatives, all glaring at him with crossed arms.
What the hell is this?
You, who is supposed to be my husband, have been reported as the husband of a stranger. So I gathered everyone here to make the announcement. To all the relatives, too. Skylar is at school, by the way. Kieran finally seemed to give in, slumping to the ground. An elderly woman in mourning attire, likely Samantha's mother, confronted him. Hey, Kieran, you're Samantha's husband, right? What is going on here? The funeral attendees became unsettled, creating a commotion. You're Samantha's mother, aren't you? Would you mind having a conversation? I approached her and suggested we stop the hearse to talk inside the hall, surrounded by a large extended family, his father, and my parents. Kieran was completely dwarfed and trembling. Ignoring Kieran, I explained the situation to Samantha's parents. Kieran and I got married 18 years ago and have a 16-year-old son. At that point, Samantha's parents began to speak as if abruptly leaving their seats. Kieran and Samantha got married 4 years ago. It seemed their relationship started when Samantha, a bookstore clerk, was approached by Kieran, a regular customer. When he expressed a desire to marry her, she initially opposed it, citing their age difference. However, upon realizing the genuine love between them, she eventually gave her approval. Due to Kieran's busy work schedule and frequent business trips, they could only meet on weekends, but Samantha appeared happy, until she passed away due to a heart attack the day before yesterday. Having heard everything, I glared at Kieran. How about you confess with your own words soon? Kieran finally resigned himself. He confessed to hiding his marital status and having been in a relationship with Samantha for 5 years. However, he didn't want to relinquish his position as the heir to the real estate company, so he led a double life.
I'm truly sorry, but this was just an affair. Please, forgive me.
Kieran, on his knees, bowed deeply to my relatives. A figure approached him, my enraged father.
What a foolish son. What have you done?
With all his might, my father shoved Kieran, sending both him and the chair flying.
Dad, why?
My father, with a stern expression, spoke coldly to the stunned Kieran.
I can't let someone like you inherit our company. Susan, what about you?
Divorce is a given, Dad.
Huh? Divorce? Not inheriting the company either. What?
As Kieran began to panic, I said to him with a decisive tone, What have you done to Samantha and me? A supposedly honest man like you can go to hell. I don't want to see this scumbag face of yours. Condemned by a multitude of people, Kieran sat there like an empty shell. Later, Kieran and I got divorced. With the help of a lawyer, I successfully obtained alimony for the affair and child support. Kieran was also estranged from my father, who refused to acknowledge him as the heir to the real estate company. Facing lawsuits from Samantha's parents, he fell into a messy legal battle. Kieran lost everything: his home, his family, and his livelihood. He seems to have rolled into a difficult phase of life, working tirelessly like a workhorse for alimony and child support. Even hearing this, I feel no sympathy at all. I can only hope that Samantha's parents receive the fullest possible restitution. I, on the other hand, am back at home with my son Skylar and living a peaceful life. My father, who seemed downcast after losing his successor, appears to have regained motivation after Skylar encouraged him, saying, Once I graduate from college, I'll take over. My father is currently saying things like, I need to stay healthy until then. I look forward to Skylar's growth and a brighter life ahead.
Mom, I'm hungry. What? Haven't you eaten anything? What about Grandma? She went out to eat. What? I was on the verge of rage. Then I vowed to get back at my mother-in-law. My name is Sarah, a 35-year-old stay-at-home mom. I've been married to Walter for 5 years. We used to work together at the same company. I've always admired him for his dedication to work and trusted him as a colleague. Working together on several projects, we got to know each other well and eventually started dating. He is sincere, kind, and gentlemanly in his private life. I found myself increasingly drawn to his genuine and gentle nature. Before we knew it, 3 years have passed in our relationship. Just when I was thinking about marriage, I discovered I was pregnant. It was somewhat of a catalyst, and we decided to get married. Even though the pregnancy came first, I've always wanted to spend my life with you. Let me properly ask you, will you marry me? He said this as he handed me the ring. I was so happy that he proposed properly, and I thought how sincere and dutiful he was. I am looking forward to our life together. I thanked him and looked forward to our married life. Then we immediately went to meet each other's parents. My parents quickly recognized his good nature and felt reassured. I was glad they approved of him. Next, we visited Walter's parents, but that's where I faced a problem. Walter's mother, Tiffany, didn't take to me. Nice to meet you. I'm Sarah. I greeted her cheerfully and politely. Walter's father, Steve, greeted warmly with a smile, but Tiffany just frowned and didn't even respond. Is she upset about something? As I thought this, she said, So, this is a shotgun wedding, huh? Isn't that a bit improper? Excuse me? Walter and I were shocked by her abrupt comment. Why would you say that? He retorted, visibly annoyed. It shows a lack of responsibility in your relationship. Even if you get married, I'm sure you'll end up divorcing. It's embarrassing to have a wedding and then tell everyone you divorced. Plus, you'll end up just paying child support and feeling miserable. Her words were too harsh. How could she say something like that so casually? Walter clenched his fists, looking at his mother. After all, you've never been good at making smart decisions. That's why I have to. Steve interrupted her at that point.
Enough, Tiffany. Whatever their circumstances, it's not right to speak like that about a happy occasion like marriage. Walter and Sarah are the ones getting married, and they're at an age where it's not odd for them to have children. They both have stable jobs. There's no problem here.
His words finally quieted her. Walter then followed up. We were serious about marriage from the start. The pregnancy was just a catalyst. We're ready and responsible for this marriage. Whatever. Do as you please, she said disinterestedly. After this exchange, I found it hard to like her. Thankfully, Steve helped smooth things over, and the rest of the family meeting went well. We got married and had a lovely wedding. With a baby on the way, I decided to quit my job and focus on being a homemaker. Life with Walter was joyful and time flew by. He remained incredibly kind to me after marriage. I got us some cake. Oh, is today some special occasion? No, I just saw a cake you might like and wanted to say thanks to all the housework you do. I loved that he always expressed his gratitude. Walter also always complimented my cooking, and on weekends he'd cooked for me.
Tonight's dinner is beef stew. Let's enjoy a non-alcoholic sparkling wine to set the mood.
Oh, that sounds great. This looks delicious. He was always considerate, especially since I was pregnant. I gave birth to a healthy baby girl, whom we named Lisa. Walter and I were typical doting parents, constantly admiring how cute she was. Our love for her knew no bounds. I'm going to work even harder. I want to make our family of three's life better and better. Thank you, honey. Keep up the great work as the head of our family. Our daughter grew quickly, and before we knew it, she started speaking. Mommy, Daddy. Wow, that's amazing. She's a genius. My husband and I were very happy watching her grow. We took lots of photos of her during her first Christmas, really getting into the spirit. My parents adored her, playing with her every time they visited. Grandma, Grandpa, this is for you.
Oh, a dandelion.
Giving flowers, how sweet! She's quite the romantic. Lisa was growing up to be a very kind child, just like her father. She would approach other children in the park and play with them. Seeing her make friends and play energetically was reassuring. Time passed, and she turned 5. But then a very sad event occurred. My father-in-law, Steve, passed away. He fell ill suddenly and didn't make it. Walter, Tiffany, and I were all deeply saddened. Tiffany was so upset that it was worrisome. The funeral arrangements were efficiently handled by Walter's sister, Heather. She's incredibly smart and capable, and I have a lot of trust in her. Walter had always told me how amazing she was, and she certainly lived up to that. After Steve's death, we had to start looking after Tiffany. Walter would regularly visit her to check in. Our house wasn't far from hers, so he made sure she was okay and didn't fall or anything while alone. I'm home. Welcome back. Dinner's ready.
Ah, thanks.
You look tired. Is work tough?
Oh no, it's not work. It's dealing with Mom afterwards. Oh, right. She keeps complaining about the neighbors bragging about their hobbies, thinking it's a dig at her for losing her husband, and stuff like that. She's got a lot of these paranoid complaints.
That sounds tough. After work, he would visit his mom, and he looked really exhausted. He was not only listening to her complaints, but also running errands for her, buying things that were only available at department stores. It was a lot of effort, and she would even complain about him being late. Maybe you shouldn't push yourself so hard.
If I don't, she'll keep sending messages and calling.
That's troublesome. Walter had a senior position at work, so he was often busy with work-related calls. If Tiffany kept calling or messaging, it could bury important work communications. I couldn't help much since I was taking care of Lisa, but seeing Walter so tired, I felt we had to do something. Amidst of all this, something happened. Tiffany injured her foot at home. She twisted it on the stairs and had to call an ambulance herself. When Walter rushed to the hospital, she was furious. "You were so late. I had to call an ambulance myself. What if I had passed out or remained fallen? I might need care for my injured foot." The doctor said she wasn't hurt at all, no need for rehab, let alone care. Still, she made such a fuss and even demanded to move in with us. She wants to live together with us?
Of course, I said no, but she keeps messaging me about it, really driving me nuts.
He was clearly stressed. As his wife, I thought about how to reduce his burden. Don't go to her place after work anymore. Let's go together on weekends. As for living together, let's firmly say no.
Are you sure? You don't like her much.
That's true for you too. Let's also invite Heather and her child. Tiffany might enjoy that.
Yeah, that's a good idea.
He seemed relieved. After explaining the situation to Heather, she agreed to regularly join us on weekends. So, Walter and I, Heather, and her son started visiting Tiffany together. She seemed happy with the lively atmosphere, being alone otherwise.
It's always so much fun when everyone comes over. I wish we could all live together.
I was glad she was in a good mood, but something still bothered me. It was her remarks to my husband.
You've always been poor at academics. Heather went to a prestigious university and landed a job at a major company, but you...
She often belittled him like this. She adored Heather for her success and doted on her son.
Oh, you're so clever, just like your mother. Listen to your mother. That way, you won't go wrong.
I honestly thought her discriminatory attitude was not okay. My husband's fatigue was likely due to her overtly negative behavior and being constantly compared to his sister every time they met. I felt sorry and grateful for him enduring this while working hard and not burdening our family. My husband is truly a kind and sincere person. Months after we started visiting Tiffany regularly, she made this suggestion.
As a thank you for always coming over, why don't the adults go out for dinner tonight? I'll take care of the kids.
What? We were all surprised by her suggestion, but it was a welcome one. I have wanted to have a leisurely meal with Heather, and it had been a while since my husband and I dined out. So we took her up on the offer. We enjoyed our meal, chatting and having a good time. Around 9 p.m., we decided to head back. But when we arrived at Tiffany's house, something was off. She and Heather's son were nowhere to be seen. Only our daughter, Lisa, was in the living room, watching TV while sitting on the sofa. "Where's Grandma? Why are you alone?" "Mom, I'm hungry." "What? Haven't you eaten anything? What about Grandma?" "She went out to eat." "What?" I was on the verge of exploding with anger. Both my husband and Heather were speechless.
What is she doing?
Then Tiffany returned nonchalantly with Heather's son. Oh, you're back already.
Mom, what are you thinking? Leaving Lisa and going out?
Well, I wanted to dine with my grandson. Oh, wait a minute, Mom. You took my son and left Lisa behind? Don't be so upset. Lisa is 5. She can stay alone.
It's not okay to leave her alone at night. And why didn't you take her to dinner?
It's a waste of money to feed her. I only wanted to spend money on the capable ones. I was furious, as was my husband, and even Heather was taken aback. She had always been aware of her mother's favoritism towards her and felt it was wrong. That's why she was always concerned about Walter, and they had a good sibling relationship. This incident left all of us furious with Tiffany, and we vowed to get back at her. After the ordeal, my husband and I prepared for the next move. Once everything was ready, we made a proposal to Tiffany.
Mom, how about we live together, like you've always wanted?
Oh, are you sure about that?
Yeah. Actually, we're thinking of moving to a bigger place near Heather's family. You'd like that, right?
Wonderful. I'll be closer to Heather's family. She was delighted, falling for our plan. We moved to a new rental with plenty of private space. Lisa was thrilled to have her own room, and I resolved to always protect her, especially with Tiffany around. As a stay-at-home mom, I could always be with her. Once we started living together, Tiffany immediately began ordering me around. Sarah, make me some coffee. What? Why should I? What do you mean? It's a daughter-in-law's duty to make coffee for her mother-in-law. Is that so? Well, I don't want to. Excuse me? She was furious at my response. You think you can talk to me like that? Yes. Infuriating. Fine, I'll make it myself. What are you doing? Don't use the coffee beans without asking. Why not? If you want to use our food or beverages, please contribute to the grocery expenses. What? You're going to charge me? Of course. Don't expect to live here for free. Don't be ridiculous. I've never heard of a daughter-in-law making her mother-in-law for grocery money. Whether you've heard of it or not doesn't matter. That's our house rule. I'll get rid of such a rule. I'll tell my son about this. Go right ahead. She stormed off to her room, eyes wide with anger. I made myself a coffee and relaxed. At lunch, I prepared food just for myself. Tiffany, too stubborn to come out of her room, probably planned to eat when I was out picking up my daughter, but I had already planned for that. In the afternoon, I went to pick up Lisa from kindergarten, and then we leisurely shopped at the supermarket. When we returned home, Tiffany was waiting furiously. What is this? What's wrong, Tiffany? Getting so angry will raise your blood pressure. Why is there a lock on the fridge? I can't even get a drink. It's to prevent you from using our food and drinks without permission. That's terrible. What kind of daughter-in-law are you? She seemed too hungry to continue her tirade and gulped down tap water before retreating to her room. I then started preparing for dinner. Right as it was ready, Walter returned home. I'm home. As soon as he arrived, Tiffany rushed to him. Walter, listen. Sarah is bullying me. This is outright daughter-in-law abuse. I haven't been fed anything today. Oh, really? Despite her desperate pleas, he responded coldly. Tell that woman something! Shouting, she looked at him. Walter glanced at me and asked, What's for dinner tonight? I replied, Chicken. Great, that sounds delicious. I've also chilled some beer.
Awesome.
He sat down at the table.
Walter, tell this woman off.
What should I say? Thanks for cooking?
No, I haven't been fed all day.
As she sat down, I did not place any food in front of her.
Where's my dinner?
Why would there be any for you? Feeding you is a waste of grocery money.
What?
Yeah, spending food money on Mom is a waste. Walter agreed with me and started eating his chicken. Tiffany realized her own words were coming back to haunt her and was speechless.
You both are terrible. I'm going to Heather's.
She stormed out. I immediately contacted Heather and informed her Tiffany was heading her way. Walter then packed up her belongings and put them outside. He locked the door to prevent her from returning. 30 minutes later, Tiffany rang the doorbell. Yes, who is it? Playing dumb, he answered.
Hey, open up.
Why, weren't you going to Heather's?
I was, but she cut ties with me, saying I couldn't stay there.
So you came back here, but we're also cutting ties with you.
What?
I put all your stuff outside. Take it and leave.
Wait, what do you mean?
Sarah and I can't forgive you, leaving Lisa alone and not feeding her. I'll resent that for life. And always comparing me to Heather and belittling me, I can't stand it. I no longer consider you family. Just leave.
But...
Walter cut off the intercom. Tiffany, apparently having a breakdown outside, was taken away by the police. None of us, not Walter, Heather, or I, went to pick her up. Eventually, she realized her mistake and sent a long apology emails to Walter and me. But we were done forgiving. She managed to find a place in a rundown apartment and now works part-time, leading a meager life. She claims to have reflected on her actions, but we know she'd revert to her old ways if given the chance. We've decided never to forgive her. She should stay alone for life. Meanwhile, we as a family are happily living together, including Heather and her family in outings and barbecues. I plan to continue cherishing my husband and daughter, living happily ever after. My husband has left me to take care of our newborn twins all by myself. Even when I was pregnant, he barely acknowledged how tough it was for me. Instead, he said something like this. I've got to go on a business trip for a week soon. That's going to be tough. I'm already swamped with taking care of the twins. What can I do, though? It's my job. I had a feeling then that my husband was hiding something. Sure enough, when I looked into it, I discovered he was betraying me. After seeing him off on his trip, I muttered to myself, Hope you make it back safely. My name is Janice. I'm 36 years old, and I work from home. Right now, it's just my husband Thomas and me living in our apartment. Thomas is 5 years younger than me, and we met at our favorite cafe. We both had a love for reading. He seemed interested in a book I was reading and struck up a conversation one day. I really liked him. He was bright and friendly. Though he was younger than me, so I didn't initially see him as a romantic prospect, but he was forward about liking me and actively pursued me. Eventually, his persistence won me over, and we got married when I was 30. We've lived peacefully as a couple, never having any major arguments. But there was one thing bothering me. We were having trouble having a child. We started trying for a baby in our second year of marriage, but there were no signs of pregnancy. We went to the hospital together for fertility tests. Turns out, Thomas had no issues. It was me who had a condition that made it difficult to conceive. Undergoing fertility treatments was physically and mentally taxing, not to mention expensive and stressful. I started getting the brunt of Thomas's frustrations. Since I was part of the reason we couldn't have kids, I didn't resist him. Tired of the treatments, he suggested one day, "Why don't we just live as a couple, just two of us?" But I couldn't give up on having his child. "Please, just a little more cooperation. I really want a child with you. I'll give up if it doesn't happen before I turn 40. He reluctantly agreed to my desperate plea. So we continued the treatments, and I finally got pregnant, and it was twin girls, twice the joy. My parents, my friends, and in-laws were all thrilled about the pregnancy. I was over the moon. I was determined to raise these kids right. I hoped this would also improve my shaky relationship with my husband. I was daydreaming about spending time with him and our children. Childcare was new to me, but I thought I'd be fine since I had done some prep work. But taking care of twins was harder than I expected. I can only admit I underestimated it. Everyone says the real work starts after the baby is born, and they were right. Caring for twins is obviously twice the work. Feeding, diaper changes, baths, putting them to sleep, all needed for two. Feeding a single baby requires about 8 to 10 sessions, but with twins, it's 16 to 20. And they don't always want to feed at the same time. When I'm feeding one and the other starts crying and I attend to her, the first one gets upset. It's a constant cycle. Diaper changes aren't synced either. Sometimes one would soil their diaper in the middle of changing the others. This means more time spent getting fresh clothes and diapers ready. And then there's the spit up, sweat, frequent diaper leaks. I had to change their clothes often. Just as I'd finished changing them, they'd have an accident, and even my clothes get dirty. Changing and washing their clothes took so much time. The cost of raising twins is also double. Diapers, milks, clothes. It's a bit overwhelming. They also cried a lot at night, so I hardly get any sleep. I would hold them because they cry for a long time, but even then, they wouldn't sleep. Even if I managed to calm one down, the other would start crying, waking the first one up again. I was exhausted every day, barely getting any sleep. I had to take a break from my work-from-home job to focus on childcare. My mom works, so she couldn't help, and my mother-in-law lives too far away. They say you should rest after giving birth, but that wasn't an option for me. I had no choice but to struggle through it alone. As for Thomas, he was no help at all. To be exact, he was uncooperative with childcare from the start. When he saw our newborns, he just laughed and said, "They look like monkeys. Not cute at all." And to me, exhausted from childbirth, he joked, "They look ugly. Are you sure they're mine?" He dumped all the housework and childcare on me, using work as an excuse. It was fine when we didn't have kids, but now with newborn twins, it was too much. Even when I asked for help, he'd say, "I don't know how to do it, so I can't." I didn't know how to do it either. It was my first time. He seemed indifferent to our twins' care. I tried to talk to him about it, but it was always in vain. "Thomas, I know you're busy with work, but I'm still recovering from childbirth, and childcare is toughest now. You're a father, too. Can't you be a little more responsible? Could you maybe come home early and help out, even if it's just for a while?" Then he got really defensive. "What? Acting like you're the queen. You get to relax at home because I work hard outside. Don't you get that?
And now you want me, tired from work, to do childcare and housework? You've got to be joking.
I'd like to work too, but I can't right now. And it's not like I'm relaxing at home. I'm sleep deprived every day. Is it too much to ask for a little help with housework and childcare? No matter how much I asked, he just wouldn't agree. And our conversations got us nowhere. Finally, he threw a tantrum and ended the conversation forcibly.
Enough already. I can't even relax when I come home. I've been dragged around by your infertility and whims for too long. And just when I thought I was free from fertility treatments, this happens. I should have never had kids in the first place.
With that, he stormed off into another room. Hearing his words, I just hung my head. Maybe my desire for children was indeed selfish. Thomas, unlike me, didn't desperately want children, and in hindsight was reluctant about fertility treatments. I remember him growing colder around the time my morning sickness got worse. If I neglected household chores or were bedridden due to illness, he would yell at me like a madman. Feeling guilty for dragging him into fertility treatments, I just silently endured his verbal abuse. I thought maybe things would change for the better once the kids were born, but instead, things just got worse. Our marriage quickly grew cold, and we started avoiding each other at home. Then one day, he dropped a bombshell. Despite being in the middle of caring for 1-week-old twins, he said he had to go on a week-long business trip.
It's an important job, so I can't mess it up. I'll be turning off my phone during the trip, so don't contact me, not even through WhatsApp or texts.
Can't someone else take your place? I am still recovering from childbirth and can't move around much. What am I supposed to do if something happens to the kids? He wouldn't listen to my desperate pleas.
What? Don't be so needy. I have work. It can be helped.
He dismissed my requests, using work as a shield, but I could tell he was lying. He might not realize it, but he rubs under his nose when he lies. It was just a woman's intuition, but I felt I couldn't overlook this lie about this business trip. In the past, I had ignored his minor lies about pinching pennies or saying he was going shopping when he was actually going out to drink. But this time was different. It concerned the care of our twins. What kind of lie he was telling this time? I knew confronting him then would only lead to more lies. So I pretended to give up on stopping his trip. In the meantime, until he left, I was busy investigating something. And I hit the jackpot. My intuition was right. He was hiding a huge secret. I'll never forgive him. I'll make sure he gets what he deserves. A few days later, Thomas, humming a tune and in high spirits, said to me as he was getting ready to leave,
"All right, I'm off on my business trip."
He was unusually cheerful for someone just going to work, but I didn't comment on it. Have a good trip. Hope you make it back safely.
Huh? Did you say something?
No, nothing. Just be careful. Don't get into an accident. He didn't seem to hear my last words as he left the house, looking quite pleased with himself. He was blissfully unaware of the hell that awaited him. Enjoy yourself while you can, I thought to myself. He won't have that luxury when he comes back. I decided to prepare what would come after his return. I was looking forward to seeing his reaction in a week. A week passed and he came home, but instead of the upbeat mood he left in, he looked utterly exhausted, his face covered in bruises, his clothes dirty and disheveled.
"I'm home. Oh man, I'm so tired. There's no place like home."
Oh my, what happened to your face? Look at those bruises.
"Oh, I just fell, that's all."
He was rubbing under his nose again, lying even at this point, unaware that I already knew the truth. He was still so naive. Then he noticed something was off in the house. Hey, what's with all these cardboard boxes? Are we moving or something? Indeed, the house was filled with boxes containing my belongings. To his question, I replied coldly, "The kids and I are moving out. I don't plan on coming back here." What? What are you talking about? I can't stay with a husband who lied about a business trip to go on a cheating vacation while I'm at home with 1-week-old twins. I'm filing for divorce and leaving. He looked shocked, his face turning pale, and then he started yelling at me. Stop with the nonsense. This just because I didn't help with the kids is too much. Do you even have any proofs that I cheated? In response, I showed him a video. It showed him discussing his trip with his mistress. I'm really looking forward to the trip tomorrow. Don't worry, I fooled my wife. Did you manage to talk to your husband, Sarah? Oh, that's great. Seeing the video, he went pale. When did you? I thought you were at the hospital when I made that call. I never expected the camera I was setting up to catch something like this. After all, it was intended for a different use. Actually, this footage was from a baby monitor camera I had secretly bought with my personal savings. I was anxious about being away from the kids, so I had installed cameras around the room. I thought he would make a fuss about it being a waste of money. I had heard about a woman named Sarah from him before. There's this cute new employee named Sarah, but she's married, too bad. After seeing the footage from the baby monitor, I called Thomas's company to confirm his business trip. It turned out he had taken leave instead. On the phone, I asked, "Could you please put me through Sarah Johnson?" As expected, the response was, "Sarah Johnson is also on leave." So, the affair was indeed with Sarah, his junior colleague. I searched Thomas's study and found a memo with staff contacts, then called Sarah's house. Her husband answered, and when I explained the situation, he was furious. It seemed there were already suspicions about her infidelity, and he had been about to investigate. I asked him to keep it a secret that he had heard it from me. The day before Thomas was due to return from his business trip, I received a call from Sarah's husband explaining what happened. Apparently, Thomas had brazenly gone to pick up Sarah from her house and encountered her husband. He beat up Thomas, which explained the bruises all over his face. He couldn't go home right away and had to kill time in a motel before he finally returned. He stood in front of me, speechless, his mouth opening and closing. Then someone burst in. "Mom, Dad, what are you doing here?" Entering the living room were my furious in-laws, their faces red with anger. I had also informed them and shown them the baby monitor footage. My father-in-law, in a rage, punched Thomas in the face, adding another bruise. "You stupid son! Cheating, what a despicable act! You're disowned!" Then, more shouting from behind. "I'm taking my daughter and grandkids back home. What a terrible man you are!" Absolutely dreadful. "Janice, you called your parents too?" Actually, I had also called my parents to help with the move. My mother hugged the kids, glaring coldly at Thomas. My mother-in-law, tears in her eyes, slapped him and scolded, "You stupid son!" Surrounded by both sets of parents, his face was a sight to behold. Then I dropped another bombshell. "Oh yeah, I also contacted your company's president. They already know that you used your leave days for your affair." Hearing this, he yelled at me. "Are you kidding me? What have you done?" My father, raising his fist, yelled back at him.
How dare you act like this after cheating? You have a problem with my daughter? I'm sorry.
Cornered, he began to plead with me.
Please, Janice, the affair was a moment of madness. Don't divorce me. I'll leave Sarah and help out with housework and childcare from now on.
His desperate pleas didn't move me at all. They were just a nuisance. I retorted sharply. What are you saying now? You weren't there for me when I needed you most. Do you have any idea how hard it was to take care of twins and do housework alone? And you were on a vacation with your mistress. You really have some nerve.
I know. I'm truly sorry. I am.
No excuses. I'm done with you. I can't be your wife anymore. Don't come near me and the kids ever again. I'll be demanding alimony and child support, just so you know. I left the apartment with everyone, leaving him behind. Later, Thomas and I divorced. I demanded alimony for his affair with Sarah and, of course, child support from him. He received a stern warning from his company, but resigned because he couldn't stand the disdainful looks from his colleagues. He ended up with a debt of $100,000 from the alimony and child support payments to me and Sarah's husband. Now he's working himself to exhaustion in manual labor day and night. Sarah was also divorced by her husband, left her job, and returned to her parents' home in the countryside. She's working in a factory, monitored due to the alimony demands from her husband and me. As for me, I moved back to my parents' home, and I'm taking care of the twins with my mother's help. Just watching the twins grow up healthy makes me happy. They are loved by the entire family and seem very happy. I'm determined to work hard for the sake of these children's future.